Hey, welcome to episode 2. You've made it this far.
Came back.
You've listened to the first one, or maybe you hit skip. I don't know, but you're here for the second. You're back for more. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing,
That's
Mike.
half the battle, man. You returned.
Right, you came. We think it's like people coming back to your church. You came, you saw something, you're like, yay, don't leave.
Don't leave. Exactly. Don't leave.
Don't leave it, don't ever leave. This entire episode is dedicated to pastors and leaders who are leading churches. We said 200 or less, but if you're at 201, we're not going to send you away. 200 or less, considered a small church.
Small church. Focus, yeah.
Let me introduce myself. My name's David Krausen.
I'm Mike Hernandez.
Yes, he is a pastor at a local church here in the area.
That's right.
And I'm a worship pastor at a church plant. And we are excited to take you through this season. We've made it through one season. We talked about
why growth is important.
Why is growing your church important? Reasons why you're not growing. Some barriers to church growth. That was fun. If you didn't catch episode 1, go back to episode 1. That was kind of fun. However, you don't have to have listened to that one before you do this one. This episode was all dedicated to change.
Wow.
Leading through change.
Yes.
And some funny thoughts come to mind just about change in general. Like we bought a new car recently, and looking around, used to you jumped in, and I guess actually back in the day you had like an 8-track type player.
I don't even know.
I don't even know what you call it.
I don't know what that's called.
Neither one of us are very old, but we are not also very young.
Nope.
But you would put that in, and that would play music, and then it moved to like a cassette player, and you had a cassette player. Cars just came with cassette players, and then it was CD players. And the car that I just bought does not even have a CD player in it.
Obsolete, man.
So, I mean, I don't even own CDs anymore.
Crazy.
Everything is MP3, Bluetooth, so my phone connects wirelessly. Back in the day when Bluetooth was a thing and most cars didn't have it.
You had to have the adapters.
You had that AM, FM, you had to pick
in.
a radio station that wasn't taken, and you could stream your phone to
How
it.
fast that has changed.
Dude, that was like there and gone.
Yep.
And now it's just built into the system. And change.
That's right.
And so that change was inevitable.
That's right.
It was coming whether you wanted it or not.
It's here.
And nothing you can do about it. And you can't have a cassette player installed in your car, really.
Nope.
I mean, not without just destroying your dash in your car. So you just have to adapt.
That's right.
And it's okay. Change can be good. It's a good thing.
That's right.
And it doesn't have to be painful.
That's right.
Don't fight it. It's going to happen. Change is inevitable.
It's everywhere. It's inevitable. You can't fight it. It's happening all around us. It's happening to you, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah,
we're getting older.
The white's starting to come into my beard. And I'm like, where did that come from?
Yes.
Man.
It's part of life.
It just happens.
It just is inevitable. And so the more you can look at it and embrace it and just say, it's going to happen, the better we are when change hits our organizations and hits our churches. So change is inevitable.
I don't think either one of us are believers in evolution. In fact, I know that we don't believe in evolution, but I do believe that we are evolving and things are evolving, and it's just growth, right? Growing, evolving, changing,
adapting,
learning how church is doing that.
Learning how to pastor a church from 100 to 150 to 200 to even beyond that. All of that required dramatic changes in how we did stuff.
Right. So you might be looking at a pastor of a few thousand people and thinking, man, he's got it easy because he's got all these people. Like,
I know.
Man, he's facing some stuff that you can't even wrap your head around. And
deep in some change.
But that doesn't belittle your problems. And that's what this entire season is about, is the challenges that you face as a pastor of a church of 200 or less. They're very unique to you. And so let's talk about change.
Okay.
Let's talk about why is leading through change in a small church important. You've decided it's time to make a change, and you might be on the fence about it, or you might know it's the right thing to do, but you're scared to make the change because any number of reasons.
Yeah.
Well, so talk about that.
Right out the gate, we've already said a couple of times, because change is inevitable.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And the more you fight it, the more animosity you're going to have within yourself and within your people. Change is happening. You have families who came in with infants. Guess what? Those infants are going to turn into toddlers, and those toddlers are going to turn into middle schoolers.
Right. That means if you didn't have a middle school ministry before because you didn't have get ready for it.
That's right. It's inevitable. It change is inevitable. That's why this whole episode is so important, because often we bury our heads in the sand. We don't think we want to embrace change, or we want to avoid change, but it's just unavoidable. Change is inevitable all around us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this whole idea, this whole theme of this season is really, we said churches 200 or less and leadership struggles, but it's really that healthy things grow.
That's right.
And your church is growing. Growth equals change.
Yes.
Change can be fun.
Sure.
I love change. I'm the type that Dude, my office has changed.
We're going to talk about these kind of people
faces.
in this episode that love change, right? We'll talk
Man,
about them.
it has changed so much because I just love it so much.
Yeah.
And some people can't stand it. And, they've got the same carpet for 40 years and the same car because why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm like, let's change it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Here's what they say. People change for two reasons.
Okay.
Why? One, because they have to.
Right.
Or because they choose to.
Okay.
And we hope that after this episode, we've kind of stepped and encouraged that we need to be in the choose to category, right? Because when it's have to, it hurts. And we've talked about like the pain of change.
The pain of change. When the pain of
right.
When the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change is kind of how the saying goes.
That's right.
That's when you change.
That's when you got to do it.
We just can't stay in this building anymore.
Sure.
We just can't stay at this volunteer number in kids ministry anymore because people are burning out.
Right.
We just can't, you fill in the blank in your situation. We just can't do it anymore.
We change because we have to or because we choose to. And our heart is that we are a little bit more warmed up to the choose to.
Like right in between, I think is a good
That's
spot.
Right.
Like we're leaning towards we get to change. Let's change. Let's change.
That's right.
Not just for change's sake.
Exactly. I think just changing because you want to change can create some chaos in your organization.
Sure, that
chaos in our
church.
Ever, right. There are things. There's some very valuable things about some stability and learning how to approach change effectively. But just changing because I want to change. I'm bored with this. That'll usually invoke chaos. In an
Don't move the front door of your church.
Exactly.
Don't move the parking lot to the other side of the.
Or do what I did as a youth pastor. I had a different hairstyle every 2 months.
There you go.
Come on,
who is this guy?
Who is this guy preaching to us now? So just because changes, just changing things doesn't change things, right? So we're going to talk about strategic change and approaching strategic change and what it looks like.
Change on purpose.
That's right. That's right.
On purpose, for reason, for purpose. If you're watching this and you're one of those people that don't like to change, I know some people like that. Is that you?
No, come on. It's difficult. Yeah, I like order and structure, and I like repetition.
Okay.
Predictability,
right?
This was the one that, as a pastor taking on a revitalization project or bringing a church from nothing that was closing its doors to a thriving,
healthy, growing church,
was all about change. And so it was very challenging
from day one.
Very challenging.
Like church planners get to come in and like create.
Oh yeah, there's no change. You're morphing it into.
Yeah, you get to create whatever you want in front of you.
I had 60 plus years of history that I was trying to
turning a ship around, right?
Move. So yeah, it was difficult. But I found out there are some barriers and some reasons why people don't change.
Why are people resistant to change?
Why we struggle with change in our lives. And one is, because they don't want to affect what's going on in the finances. Like if I change too much, I might upset the apple cart and we, my salary's impacted, my youth pastor's salary's impacted, or we can't, pay bills. We can't keep the doors open. So if I change too much, people are going to stop giving. And
that's a valid concern.
That's a huge concern. And so we got to talk about that. We got to engage and put it on the table as that's one of the things that could possibly why people are so resistant to it. Well, because they don't want to rock the boat, man. And they don't want Sister Yo-Yo coming at them every Sunday and creating confrontation. I'm a non-confrontational person.
Sure.
My wife loves confrontation. And so we have fun. Yeah, it's awesome. But some people they don't want to rock the boat. And so they just avoid change at all costs. And they don't want to lose people because we think change means
money,
that's
people.
Right. We're going to lose people. If we do, we're going to lose money. And I would dare say, change without purpose, those things are possible. People can get upset.
Yeah.
But I've changed with purpose and still lost people and still lost money. It's the idea that God is leading me down this road of change, and I'm going to trust Him 100% in this change process. But we'll get down to that conversation in a little bit. But other reasons why I think people don't is because they feel like they have to be the one in charge of everything.
Okay.
So I don't want to hand this over or change who's doing it because I can do it better.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. I know how to do it faster. And so therefore we hold on to things and we don't let other people into those areas of our church or ministry.
As a creative person, I can totally understand the whole, I don't want you doing the graphic because it's going to be terrible.
Sure.
But how does someone ever learn? Man, I had a Facebook memory the other day pop up from like 10 years ago or something. And it was some graphics that I had done for a church. And I thought, who did that? That's terrible.
Was it? It was yours?
It was mine.
Oh, that's funny.
It was my stuff. I was like, that's terrible. I can't believe I used to pay Like people used to pay me for that.
Sure.
Like, but if they never like took the risk,
That's
like,
right.
and I never, had the
Give it the opportunity.
opportunity,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Then I wouldn't be who I am today as a
Sure.
graphic designer and a creative in a church. And now it's my responsibility to give
Yes.
people the chance to
Yes.
make a mistake,
Yeah.
and to change and to grow,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
relinquishing control. That's
Letting go and allowing other people to try and
don't be afraid to
exactly.
let go.
Don't be afraid.
Let go.
I think another reason why people resist change is they're kind of constantly stuck in what's happened in the past,
Okay.
because the past was so great, right?
Okay.
That they don't want to change because the past was so rewarding, that it was so fruitful, and so therefore
It worked then.
It worked then, and so it's going to work always.
Yeah.
And that goes back to your illustration. The tape worked then,
Yeah.
but it
Why
doesn't
do we
work
need
now
an
anymore.
MP3?
Exactly, it doesn't work now anymore. Better quality, better this. So
yeah.
I think that's one of the resistors is
Sure.
that we think it can't get any better than this, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that prevents people from trying new things or stepping into new seasons of things. So
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about the past whenever we talked the other day about things like change is often viewed as implied criticism of the past. We're saying,
oh yeah,
you don't even like you want change because you don't like what we did.
right,
Whoa. Not necessarily the case.
correct,
Maybe we need to change because the carpet is stained so bad
right,
that people
got a
walk in the
smell.
door. Yeah, there's a smell in our
smell.
church that we can't find or get rid of, and turns out it's the carpet
Right.
because it's been, cups have been spilled and hasn't been cleaned. Well, good grief. I mean, it's 40 years old.
Sure,
It's got to go. It's
Right.
had traffic.
right,
We can't hold on to that. We talked about that last episode, Sacred Cows. Let the green carpet go.
yes,
Like,
please,
just change. It's not a criticism. It's just necessary.
sure, it's inevitable.
It's
Yeah.
necessary. It needs to happen. It's gonna happen. Now, I think a lot of this stuff, like some of those issues, just come from like religious spirits. People just like, well, we come to the country club, right? And I park there and I sit there and we walk on that carpet and we do those things and I know your name, and that this idea of change will
It
like,
irks us.
it does something to your heart, right?
Yeah.
Like your
Sure.
soul. Maybe it's a soul issue.
It disrupts
Maybe you need
us.
to pray through, and just be okay with change, because God's always changing us.
That's right.
Why are we afraid for our church to change?
Sure. Well,
Why are we afraid of it?
because
So,
again, we're
lots of
stuck in some
reasons.
other stuff. Yeah, we're stuck in the past, or yeah,
all these things. So dealing with change.
right.
If you're approaching the topic of change in your church, maybe it's time to fill in the blank. We just have to do it now. What are some factors that we need to consider
Sure.
walking into? Maybe it's a small change, maybe it's a big change, and
Right.
maybe those are two different sets of factors, but let's
Gotcha.
get some general factors here.
Sure.
Change, we're changing. Where do we start?
I would initially always go to the idea of who am I talking to? Who am I trying to lead into change? So
Okay.
personality matters.
So the audience.
That's
the
right. Who
people.
am I bringing this change to? And I got to realize that some
Yeah,
of
if you're
them,
bringing change to your youth group, they don't care.
yeah,
right?
yeah, they're like, oh yeah, this was
Change it.
5 minutes ago. Like, why haven't you changed already? Yeah,
We
they're
should have
so
done this 2 years ago.
they're
Right.
so accumulated to change or accumulated to change. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're on board right away.
So know your
So
audience.
know who you're talking, like the
Okay.
personality of the people you're engaging with,
Right.
your staff, your board of elders, however your church's structure is set up. Like that's important to know the people in the room. Like, for example, you
Okay.
said earlier, you love change.
Oh, yeah.
So
Let's
I
go.
know that if I'm trying to change something, you're going to be on board right away.
I'm
You're
a
like,
vote.
yeah, let's go. Versus if I had a staff member or a volunteer or a board member who I knew personality wise was a little more,
Apprehensive.
resistant to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to know that. I don't need to just rush in there and be like, oh, we're changing. Personality is a great factor when you're walking into knowing your own personality,
Mhm.
knowing that having your, whether you do Enneagram or whether you do Myers-Briggs or whatever that you do to do self-awareness, like knowing your own personality. I am resistant to change
Yeah.
personality wise.
Yeah.
And so when people bring change to me, I'm usually resistant to it. Like, why do we got to change? So I've had to learn that about my own personality. Now I have to learn that about the people I'm being called to lead. And so
Mhm.
personality is a huge aspect to think about who you are bringing your audience to and who
Sure.
you are bringing on the change train, right? Like
Yeah.
let them give them time if they need time, or maybe you have to bring it to them in a specific way so they are more palatable in the change. So, but being aware of
Okay.
your team and the people that that's a great factor
Gotta
to
start
look
there.
into. That's right. That's a great one.
Know your audience, know
Yes.
the people and the personalities you're talking to. Great advice. Next on the list is relational equity.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Here's what I mean when I think of relational equity is if I haven't spent time investing into those key leaders or my board, and I'm just expecting them to follow me, like that's poor relational equity. Have I spent the energy and the time investing that really this change is to benefit the growth of you, the health of the church, right? If I've just said, well, we're changing because I said so, I've not invested any relational equity. Yeah. Especially, so
it's
to
kind
people.
of just like saying trust even.
Exactly.
Like, I trust you because I've been around you.
That's
You've led me. We've had dinner together. We've hung out. Like I get it. Like I've heard your heart. You've heard my heart. Okay, you want to make a change. I get it.
And it could be that the person really isn't resistant to change. They just have not had that relational equity time with you. They've not been able to hear your heart.
Right.
So instead
maybe they've been burnt.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of demonizing them, they just don't want to ever change. It could be they've never had that pastor or that leader sit down with them and say, here's why. Let me tell you the why. So profound.
Well, that's like a perfect segue into the next reason that it is people's history with change.
Yes.
Maybe your church is full of people who the last guy or gal who was leading this thing just botched it.
Changed it. Every second, every week. It was so inconsistent. Yeah.
Man, so history with change is a huge factor.
Absolutely.
With dealing with change and approaching change in your church. We talked about this last episode. Let's talk about it again now that not all change equals growth.
That's right.
Maybe it's just necessary.
That's right.
So maybe it's just necessary to implement a new system, but that new system could eventually lead to growth.
Sure.
Maybe adding a new leader here is necessary right now, or new volunteers. Maybe having extra kids workers isn't necessarily going to lead to growth, but it's going to lead to health in your volunteers.
Right.
They have a day off.
Exactly.
They
less amount of time.
They get to sit and they get to be in big church, right? And they get to worship and
Right.
they get to hear the word and they get to grow that way.
Agreed.
So that's something to think about. Instituting change.
Okay.
What are some things we can think about when instituting change? Like, why are we changing this? How are we changing this? Some factors that play into why it's necessary to change.
Okay.
Number one on our list.
Got to be core values.
Okay.
It's got to be in the DNA of the church that we're doing this change because it syncs up with our core values. Like we are passionate about reaching the lost. Let's just use that. That's a pretty important core value. Like we're reaching the lost.
That's not on your list of core values as a church.
So when you bring the change that we're moving from this to this because this is more impactful for reaching the lost, attaching it to a core value is critical when you're trying to bring some kind of change to your people.
Man, I had a conversation actually this week with a friend who's pastoring a church, and he was talking about some of these issues, some of these things about approaching a volunteer for a couple reasons, and needed to I guess address some issues and some different things that really hadn't been defined or laid out.
Gotcha.
And I thought, I told him, I said, well, my advice is that you have to define what the core values of your church are first before you can say you're not faithful in this area. Have you ever defined that?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever said like, man,
paint the target, paint the picture.
Yeah,
right.
Faithfulness is key. Like if you're going to serve in our church, be on a leadership team in a leadership role, man, if you're not faithful, I mean, well done, thou good and faithful servant, right?
Right.
Be faithful. And if you're not faithful, but you can't call them on the carpet yet until you've said, hey guys, these are our core values. Here's who we are and what we're all about. And man, as a leadership role, sign on the dotted line almost like you agree that, man, you're going to help promote these core values in everything you do in our church and uphold them. Right. But you can't do that until you've laid them out.
Until they've been presented.
And so I think that's a great filter to filter all of your change through is we talked about not all change is equal to growth.
Correct.
But it has to be attached to something. So you don't just willy-nilly going out changing stuff.
Because we've all been guilty of I'm changing because I had a bad day yesterday.
Oh man, don't change on Monday morning.
Exactly. I'm changing because I don't like it. My preference.
Yeah.
And that's not a very sustainable way to bring change because our preferences, it should be our core values that everybody on the team has said, we've agreed to that and we're locked in. That's why we change. Not just willy-nilly.
So not reactionary.
Had some bad enchiladas yesterday, so I'm just coming in the office and I'm changing everything, right? That's such a
that's kind of like disciplining your kid without having to cool down first. Like
such an arbitrary way.
Yeah.
I think when we're leading change, we got to make sure that we're changing because there is a why attached to it. this is, and I call that core values. Like,
yeah, it needs to line up
to
with a core value,
Yeah.
which kind of leads us into our next thing about culture in your church. If you don't have a definition of the culture of your church, you've never defined culture of excellence, or
Yes.
fill in the blank, whatever that is, instituting change might affect, even inadvertently, your culture.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
How has that happened in your? Because you had a church, you walked into a situation, culture was very much established,
Exactly.
right? And you had to turn a ship around.
Sure.
So defining new culture.
Yeah,
right?
I literally had to present this idea that if we stay here, right, we die.
All right.
The, the doors close and there's no church. Like, this community will lose this life.
Well, your neighbors didn't know you existed already.
True,
right?
true. But if we really
That's
close
terrible.
the church,
Yeah.
then so I had to define for them, like, this is, we want to be a church that's that's impacting our community. And I had to define, and we're going to do it with excellence. We're going to do it with grace. And I had to lay out these cultural values that the church had at one point when it was thriving.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was reminding. So I just encourage pastors,
keep it on the forefront, right?
Exactly,
Keep
who
it
have maybe have had a church and it's weaned down, and if that's been your reality, that remind them, like, this is who we once were.
Yeah.
Like, we have the ability to do this.
Yeah, do a sermon series on it, man.
Exactly.
Take your culture and map it out in like 3 or 4 weeks or something,
Exactly.
or longer. And man, like,
Paint
drive
that
it
culture.
home.
Paint that culture.
Use
for them.
scripture, obviously.
Yes.
And just encourage your people. Preach that. Put it everywhere. Like, put it on social media.
Yeah.
Print it on posters and put it in your lobby. I mean, just, this is who we are.
Yes.
As a church. Another thing when you're approaching change, another thing to think about is a vision.
Yeah.
And we were chatting about this the other day about, this vision is like in the future.
Right.
This vision is where we see God taking us as a church.
That's right.
And so when you're crafting, like, if you think mission, vision statement, people are like, okay, this is where we're going, but your mission statement is what we do today to get to the vision. What do we have to do today to get there? So creating a clear vision of where we're going can determine this change.
Absolutely.
And not only having it mapped out, but stating it clearly and getting people behind that. And then people are going to say yes to change because it matches with
Where we're
vision,
going.
culture, and values.
Yes.
So talk about vision, creating clear vision, casting clear vision.
Making sure that you are, so as we're the leaders, right? Our job is to be the leaders of, that's who we're speaking to, is the lead.
Stepping out front.
Exactly. You're the one that's champion this cause, champion this conversation, reminding ourselves, like, the vision really that God laid out for us in scripture of what we're supposed to be doing hasn't changed since he been on this
methods
earth, right?
changed,
exactly.
Right?
But the fact that our vision is to see that the church are making disciples and baptizing people, the whole Great Commission, and just saying it in a way that you remind your church, like, this is what we are called to. And we've gotten off mission. We've started focusing on other things. So when you begin to
show them how you've gotten off mission and off vision,
they will be so excited and championing with you that this is what we're going to now do as a church, is get back to what we are called to do as a church. So vision, creating a compelling vision is challenging if you've never done it before, but it's not impossible.
No,
it's not impossible.
And you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
That's right.
Like you just said.
That's right.
Just go to the Bible.
It's written down for us. And we just get, we become so, it's this mysterious thing that I'm trying to, no, it's really the vision of what God wants the church to look like is written in scripture.
Yeah.
And if we'll just take that and say, this is our playbook, this is what we're going to be doing. Yeah. Then people can go, okay, I can get behind that. And when they don't, they're not arguing with you.
Yeah.
They're arguing with scripture. And so that's easy to be like, sorry, this is what we're doing.
This lines up with scripture, right? Yeah. And don't get overly complicated with that vision.
Yes.
Right? Don't compare yours to the church down the road even, or don't try to be different from the church down the road just to be different. Yeah. Like, you're pretty much all on the same mission. So the vision is probably roughly the same, right? Just, make disciples and
that's right.
all this stuff, make lifelong followers of Christ, or however you want to word that. Like, this is what we're all about.
Correct.
So just be that and allow that to be a lens that you look through whenever you approach change. That, man, this change aligns with our vision and with getting us to our vision. So we're going to make this change. And maybe it's not the ultimate change.
Yes.
Maybe it's a step in the right direction.
Right.
So maybe you don't have to, like, turn the apple cart upside down right away.
Sure.
Maybe it's just rotating it a little bit, leaning it on its edge a little,
Sure.
because we've got to get here, but maybe I can't get there without making a few smaller changes in between.
Correct.
That's interesting. So as you've led this revitalization, this church, through a process of basically knocking on death's door to a thriving church in your community, do you have a story that comes to mind when you think, man, I've had to lead this church through change and I did it this way and it worked?
Sure.
Or maybe you've got a story and you're like, I did it this way and it failed.
Oh, I got both. I got plenty of the failing side.
I think people like to hear the failure stories better than the successful ones.
Plenty of the fail. I mean, one of the things that they tell you not to do is I came in and was like, well, we're changing everything. That's what I did. And I said, we're changing everything. And of course I got pushback because that's not what people, that's not encouraging to some people that have been a part of a church for 60 plus years.
No.
Hey, we've survived for 60 years. So I had to readjust the level at which I was bringing change.
Yeah.
And the mantra or the thing that I heard my mentor tell me as I was preparing for this season, change at the pace of the people.
Okay.
And he took me to, I know this is kind of going a little bit off topic, but he took me to the book of Exodus when the people of Israel were being led by God by the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. He said, did you notice, my mentor would tell me, did you notice that the cloud moved at such a pace that not even the little lamb of Israel was left behind? And so it really did change my perspective, because I was coming in like, oh, this church is dying. We're doing this. We're changing that. And then I felt the pushback. And so I just readjusted and I go, you know what? I'm going to change and trickle this at the pace that they can handle. And let me tell you what's happened. So when we started, the change was microscopic. I mean, it was, okay, I kept the pulpit there. Okay, I'm going to move the pulpit over here today. And I'm going to move the pulpit over there today. And then I'm going to change it. We're not going to have that kind of pulpit. We're going to have a different kind. So it was so microscopic. But now that the people are on board with it and they're ready to go, the change happens faster than it did when we first started. And we're even readjusting this as an organization. We're going, when it was at the beginning, we were saying it had to be super slow and super trickle. Now the people are like, hey, let's go. Let's go. Why are we still doing this?
Y'all come with us.
Exactly. Now we feel the people going, let's go. And the mood. And that's exactly what it is. Momentum. So we've even had to adjust the pace at which we're changing now than what we did when we first started. And that's part of change, is it's inevitable. It'll start to go quicker as you begin to do it more and more and more. And it does get
fun?
Easier. I don't ever say it's easy, but it does get easier in presenting it, especially when it lines up with vision and it lines up with culture. People are like, yeah, let's go.
I think it's a lot easier to step up in front of your people and say, we've all agreed that these are our values, right? Awesome.
Right.
We've all agreed that this is the culture of our church God's asked us to be. Yes. We all believe this is where God wants us to go. Yes. Then we need to make some change. We need to do a few things. Maybe it's one thing, maybe it's 100. We need to do some stuff to get here. And then people are a little bit more apt to say,
that's right.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
We're the leaders. If we don't paint the picture, and sometimes it's painting the picture that B, where we're going, is amazing. It's amazing. So that's our job. Paint B as amazing. It's going to be awesome. We're going to see lives change. We're going to see baptisms. We're going to all the things that. But oftentimes, what I've found is it's not making B amazing. It's making A really terrible. But here's what happens if we stay here.
Paint the stakes, right?
Yes. If we stay here,
we don't change,
we die.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't want to die. So sometimes it's the B and you're the vision caster and they're like, yes, this is awesome. And they've never seen that or heard about it. Or other times it's, man, if we stay here, it's going to be awful.
That's
and
the whole idea of the pain of changing.
That's right.
It's got to get greater.
Families. We're gonna have to cut ministries and staff are gonna have to leave. And when people hear that, they're like, okay, we don't want that. So what do we got to do? That's the question you want.
How do we fix it? Yeah,
you know?
Awesome. You've put together what I think is a really, really cool checklist. Really, 8-stage process.
Yes.
For leading change.
Yes.
And we're gonna have this available in our show notes for you to grab. But 8-stage process for leading change. Take us through it.
Yeah. So I'll give credit where credit's due. This is from John Cotter, Leading Change. It's a great business book, but we applied it to our church.
Okay.
And if we just run down real quick, it's just simply, you got to develop the vision. That's the first thing. If you don't
write it down, make it plain.
That's right.
You know?
And a strategy of what that looks like. Develop the vision. It starts with you, the leader, saying, B is amazing.
Okay.
This is a cool. So develop that. Sit
Develop
down, write it down.
Take some
The
time.
second
Take a
thing
day.
is you got to establish a sense of urgency. There's that. If we don't do this,
Okay.
what's going to happen?
Paint the stakes.
Paint it, right?
Yeah.
And then next you go to creating a guiding coalition. What that means is
What does
you
that
get people on your team, right? That when you paint this picture and you say this is what we're going, they're shaking their head. You got a group of people in the auditorium or the sanctuary or the building when you're about to cast it to the people going, yeah.
So don't
we're on
catch
board
the
with
church
that.
by surprise
Don't-
Sunday morning with the changes.
No one knows. Wait, what? This is new to me.
So go around and tap some
That's
key
right.
leaders on the shoulder, invite them over to the house for dinner.
Get some adopters on
Yeah,
your team
got
that
it.
are early and saying, yes, I want to be, I catch the vision quickly. I call that a guiding coalition.
I love that.
A team of people who are yes.
Yeah, don't go into the change alone.
Exactly.
You don't have to.
That's right. Then I say, then you got to communicate the change.
Okay,
You got to
tell the
communicate.
people.
This
Talk
is
about
this is where we're at. This is where we're going. And this is how we're going to get to that next step or that thing we're trying to change. And then I say,
Love it.
you got to empower the leaders. So
Okay.
when people say, we
What's that
can't
look like?
get there without you, meaning we want to go there, but there's no way
How
that's
do we get
possible.
there? Yeah.
You got to
Yeah.
begin to empower and release people to be a part of your action plan.
Got it.
You can't go at it alone. Can't do the change alone. You can't lift the mountain by yourself. You got to get the hands underneath you.
No, and God didn't
empowering
call
you.
you to lead your church alone.
That's right. Absolutely.
You
Then I say, once you do that, you got to start generating the wins. You got to start. Okay, so you said that B
Okay.
was better.
Right.
So along the journey, you go,
Gotta
wait,
seize.
yeah, here's what,
Yeah.
look, we got new families
Look,
now.
when we started doing this,
Celebrate, right? Yeah.
This happened.
Generate those wins. Generate the fact that, hey, because we moved that from this room to this room, it grew.
Sure.
Generate those things because what will happen is
Some practical
it
stuff
will
there.
begin
Yeah.
to get the flywheel moving and it will start creating other change and people will begin to go, look, because we're doing these things, it's getting better. And they'll start using the language that you shared in your
Oh,
vision.
of course.
That-
Yeah, because it comes back to culture because
That's
you're
right.
going to regurgitate culture
Correct.
and you're going to show culture and then your church is going to start catching on and
That's
they'll
right.
start repeating.
And then I say, celebrate the wins, right? And then watch
Okay.
it produce more wins. It just it folds in on itself. But if you don't stop and go, hey, look, because we did this, this is the outcome. People don't know that it's
Yeah.
attributed to the change that you initiated.
What
or
does
the
celebrate
vision.
the wins look like? Is that a church-wide thing or is that like
I-
happens in
It's
individuals?
yes and.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think it's either or. It's always a yes and.
Okay.
Like it's the individual ministry celebrating.
Yeah.
It's the staff sitting around celebrating.
Yeah, look.
It's
look
from
what
the
God did.
platform
Yeah.
celebrating. It's in every room.
Okay, I love it.
Celebrating.
Multifaceted
Exactly.
celebration.
Because if it just comes from the platform, then it doesn't. That means it's not trickled down to the control room, the media room, or the
Right.
nursery.
I love it when a pastor walks into your office and is like, man, you guys killed it Sunday.
Yes.
Just that small change in the sound system,
Yes.
or man, that new light you put up, or that song you sang,
Yes.
that man, that change. I know it stretched you musicians, but wow,
Right.
man, your guy stepped up on the guitar this Sunday
Sure.
on a solo that he wouldn't have done a year ago, but that was a small win.
That's
It was
right.
a big success.
That's right.
Just like this personal interaction. If you're a pastor and you've never walked into one of your staff members' office and said, you're doing a good job, can I encourage you to do that? Because it'll go a long way as if pastor says, man,
Sure.
I love what you're doing. I see what you're doing. I see your dedication.
Absolutely.
Celebrate the wins with your team members.
Right.
And then your team members, your staff will go celebrate wins with
They'll
their team
replicate
members
it.
and their volunteers. And then those volunteers will be telling other people as well. And
Yes.
it just trickles down.
And then I say at the very end, what happens is every time you do something new, every time something that you're trying to change, you keep anchoring that. You keep bringing it back full circle to the why.
Okay.
So that way, when somebody says, "Well, Pastor, I had this idea," and they say, "And it will help us fulfill the vision,"
Yeah, there you go.
you're hearing the anchoring
You're
of
saying
it back.
yes. How much money
Yes,
do you need? Do you need a
exactly.
room? Do you need yeah.
Exactly. And so you will create this culture that people will begin to say, I want to do this because it is fulfilling the vision. I call that, or Cotter calls that anchoring, right? Anchoring these new approaches to the fact that we're creating this new culture, that we're not afraid of change,
Yeah.
that we know that change is inevitable.
Yeah,
We know
yeah.
it's going to happen and we can't fight it because it's here. People will begin to go, that's the kind of culture, and they'll anchor all new things that they do into
Wow.
the culture of this is just
This
who
is
we are.
just who we are.
This
It's
is
what
who we
we
are.
do.
We're not afraid of change. That's the culture and you anchor that. We're doing this because we're not a church who's afraid of change, or we're doing this because it helps us make a difference. Whatever your vision catchphrase
Yeah.
would be.
I love it. I think that's great. I think it's a great way to kind of end where we are today. To recap, if you want to go back and listen to it again, if you're catching us at the end or whatever, we talked about why is leading through change in a smaller church important? What are some signs you might be resistant to change?
Yes.
Some factors that affect dealing with change, and how do you institute it? Like, so maybe you've gotten to that point and you know it's just time. How do you do it? I think that section of today's episode is just hugely practical, and I think you'll take a lot away from it. Again, we've got those 8 steps in our show notes. I think you can you'll be able to download them or grab them there. If you have not subscribed to the Hello Church with an exclamation point, Hello Church with an exclamation. If you didn't notice, our logo has an exclamation mark. We have to type that when we're typing an episode. Hello Church exclamation. Then
don't forget the exclamation.
You got to have the exclamation. Subscribe to the Hello Church podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're on YouTube, comment below. I think it's fun to engage with comments, to see comments if you've had to implement change in your church. Maybe something Pastor Mike said today just resonated with you, and maybe you can just say amen to that even. Just like comment there.
Or make me feel better that I'm not the only one who failed in the change. Come on, tell us something.
Yeah, if you've got a fun story that someone else can learn from. I think we learn the best from other people's failures, right? And then we grow from them, so you don't have to make those mistakes. We stand on the shoulders of those who've gone before us. So comment on there, like us, follow us on YouTube, and that way you can be notified every time a new episode comes out. Right. This is Season 4, Episode 2 of the Hello Church podcast. We'll see you next time.